Welcome to Faith and Calm. This is class number 220. That's a good number. 22 times 10. What does that mean? Number of letters in the alphabet, right? Times 2 times 10. Um, we're going to well, we it should be relevant to the time. So we'll have to mention something about Elul and the king in the field and about the time that we're in right now before Rosh Hashanah, but also relevant to the Parsha. We haven't done anything on the Parsha for a while, and the Parsha Ki Titisa has some very interesting laws, and the laws are not just purely technical; they're very practical, and they're also very spiritual. And I think that I call the topic for tonight, never be depressed, because that's what we're going to discuss is a little bit about an interesting insight from the Parsha about not being depressed ever. So you might you'll have to bear with this. It's not too hard to understand, but you have to put a little bit of focus on your mind here. So it starts out with the idea there's a law in this week's parsha. It talks about what happens if you find something. Somebody lost a dollar, a wallet, purse in the street. They lost their glasses or something of that sort. And do you have to return this item to the person who lost it? So they lost it. So did you have to return it? So the Jewish law is, yeah, you do have to return it, but there is a caveat about, when you find something in the street that somebody lost. You only have to return it if the person did not give up hope that they would ever find it. It's called miyayish, means despair. Keep that word in mind, despair. When the person despairs of ever finding it again, then you don't have to return it. So if you find something and the person is given up, then it's no longer his because he's basically cut off his ownership. He gave up. He's despaired. So he's no longer connected. It's no longer his possession anymore. So you don't have to. You could if you want to, but you don't have to legally give it back to that person. Now, how do you know if the person despairs? So the Gemara in Baba Metzia talks about two signs. It says, first off, if the thing had a sign, a siman, it's called, associated with it. So, for example, if it was a roll of dollar bills, it was tied up with a special blue thread, and you knew what the numbers of the dollar bills were, and so forth, how many there were. It was a 50 and a 20 and whatever. Exactly, and you knew where the location where it was or something like that, and the owner it's very clear that somebody put it there. It wasn't just random. Then that's the sign that the person wasn't throwing it away and gave up. He expected to be able to tell somebody, another Jew, saying hey, that's my money, it's my purse, it has this design on it, it was worn this way. That's my watch. It had that particular crack in it and so forth like that. And I can identify that particular item. Actually, in Jerusalem, there was a special stone where people would all go, once a year, 3 times a year, when everybody came for the 3 holidays, the Shlosh Regalim, and they would announce, I found this thing. And if a person could give the sign for it, then they would, return it. So it was a lost and found going back to the time of the temple. So that's one thing, that is not the person didn't miyayish, you didn't give up. The other thing is, of course, if if you lose something, that's assumed that the Jew found it. A non-Jew doesn't have the requirement to find it, to return something that's lost. So if you lose something in a city where they're mostly non-Jews, then generally we assume that the person gave up. Unless it was lost in a synagogue or a shul in there, if you lost it in the shul, then there's mostly Jews there. So you can assume that somebody Jewish found it and he probably is going to return it. But if it's lost in the street in Calcutta, then you may as well forget about it. You're not getting it back. They somebody took it, and they're not thieves because they're not required to keep it and wait and announce that they found it, and somebody has to come and announce for it. So that's the basic law that's given in the Chumash and in the Gemara. There is an interesting question that the Gemara raises. You know what that question is? It's called Miyush Shelo Bidas. The situation is as follows. What happens if the person didn't know that they actually lost it? There was a hole in their purse, a little hole in their pocket. Money fell out. They didn't know that they lost it. So technically, they didn't give up hope because they didn't even know that they lost it yet. So they didn't know about it. How could they give it? They know you didn't give up hope. On the other hand, if he had known, he would have given up. That's a situation where that we would give up, and so it's basically a hopeless situation that you would ever find it again. So the rabbis in the Gemara discuss this, and there's two opinions. There's Abaye and the Rava. Abaye says it's not lost. It's not miyush. He doesn't give up. And Rava says, yes, he did give up. I mean, because, what are you going to do? I mean, if I find something, how do I know if this person actually didn't know that he lost it? I mean, it's very hard to figure out, I'm supposed to know his mentality and whether he actually gave up or didn't give up or something like that. So the halacha usually goes by Rava, in all cases in the Gemara. And this is one of the 6 cases where it goes by Abaye. The miyush shalol midas, losing something that you didn't know about, that is not considered really losing it.
What does that mean? What do you mean?
So he didn't lose it, so you have to keep it, and the person who finds it has to keep it, and he has to give it back if he can give a sign for it.
How do you know if somebody lost it?
That's right. It's a very interesting question. You're right. That's why you have to go to a rav and the rabbi and ask him, what would be the situation, and he found something in the parking lot, and whatever, and so forth, because and that most people would, and whatever, okay. I wanted to mention this, not because I wanted to make this a halachic shir, but because a famous commentator in the Chumash, the Or HaChaim, who used to teach his daughters, Torah, every day, he wrote down his classes to his daughters, and it's now called the Or HaChaim, and it's printed in every single Mikros Gedolos, the big commentary on Chumash.
It was something he wrote for his daughters?
Yes. It was classes that he gave to his daughters. It's not simple stuff. Wow. And he says, this isn't just talking about losing something material. This is talking about people who despair, who lose hope, who abandon up, who think I'm helpless, and that life is never getting any better for me. This is impossible. I have an impossible life. It's not working. Nothing is happening. I'm never getting the apartment I want. Whatever it is, I'm stuck in a basement in some place and so forth. And they give up. They give up on themselves. Something funny happened in their life, and and they were rejected on a date, whatever it was, and thump.
Go ahead.
And I'm just elaborating like YY does, and so forth. Just that's how he talks, and so I talk a little bit like him too. So this is what happens, and so forth. People give up, they have the despair. Some of us know very much what that all means. So he says, no, you should never give up because God is always with you. But let's explain that with a story. We haven't done a good story for a long time. We have a good story for this. So this story happened a couple hundred years ago in the city of Leipzig. Now, the city of Leipzig, you may not have known this, but it was like the convention center for Europe. Whenever somebody wanted to buy something in a marketplace, for all of Europe and so forth, you went to the bigger cities to find things. And then those people from the bigger cities, they all went to the big central one in Europe, Leipzig. Leipzig was considered the place, textiles or processed goods or weaving materials, whatever you wanted. You went to Leipzig to the big fair. And there was not just Jews, it was mostly non-Jews. And you went there and you could buy huge quantities of wholesale material. So there happened to be a certain Yid. His name was Beryl Eisman, Dov Ber Eisman, and he was a merchant, a textile dealer. And he would go every single year, except one year he got very sick and he wasn't able to go. So he told his wife, Hanaleah, he said, Hanaleah, you're going to have to go. I mean, this is our business for the whole year, and I can't go. I'm sick at home. And so you're going to have to do the business. And he went and he explained to her how you go there and what Leipzig's like and his contacts there and who he does business with and how much things should cost and so forth. And he gives her all the directions and all the explanations about how he's supposed to, how you're supposed to do, how she's supposed to do things. And she goes off. She goes off to the fair with a big wad of money, a big round, tied up thing of the whole year's worth of money. And she goes to the fair and she gets a hotel room. And she starts meeting the first day with some of the business people that her husband met. And they all are very gracious to her. They all knew her husband very well, and they all want to do business with her too. And she sees some things, and she likes these particular materials and cloth and so forth. And she starts making her purchases. She doesn't pay yet. She's just making the orders, and when she's going to leave, she's going to pay and then take everything back. And she goes from one store to the other, and or stall or whatever. And when she's finally, in a few days, she had found some really good stuff, new material, better stuff than actually did better than her husband ever did. She was a sharp businesswoman too, and she figured out what the things were. And so she was all ready. And after 3-4 days, she was happy to go home. So she goes back to her hotel room, and she takes her purse and she goes to the first store to pick up the goods. And there she is, and counting out the different merchandise, and she reaches into her purse, and there's nothing there. And she's searching frantically in her purse, and there, and all the quarters, and whatever. And she looks back, and no, she can't find it. She can't find it at all. And the merchant is very sympathetic. He says, listen, you'll go back, you'll find it, you can take it on credit. I know your husband, he's honest, and so forth. And she is beside herself. She goes back to the hotel room. She looks everywhere. She cannot find it. And she knows that, that this was their year's worth of money. They have nothing else. And her husband's sick at home. What is it going to happen if she comes back with nothing? And all the other merchants say, don't worry. You can take this on credit, go to your home, take it all back. Your husband will send the money. Don't worry about it. And she's thinking, we don't have any other money to send when I get home. This is it. This is all we had. So she's in a frantic state. So and Leipzig is not Jewish. So she goes and she writes notes and she puts it in all the shuls saying that she lost a tremendous amount of money and that she has particular signs that, this is what the money looks like. And she's just hoping by some chance a Jew happened to find it. And you know what? A Jew did happen to find it. His name was, Yochanan something or other. I forgot the name. Doesn't matter. He told his friends, I found this tremendous amount of money. So she's so happy. She finds out about it. She goes to him and she describes how it was tied and the money and the bills, what it looks like. All the money match. And this guy says to her, yep, that's your money. Yep, that's exactly what I found. But there's a halacha. The halacha is that if you lose something in a city that's mostly Jews, non-Jews, and even if you have simanim, you have to assume that the person is miyayesh, gave up, despaired. And she says, what? And he says, but that's the law, and I need the money. So, I'd like to help you, but, legally, I don't have to give this to you. And she's beside herself. She says, let's go to the rabbi. Now, in Leipzig in those days was one of the biggest rabbis in Europe of the day. He was internationally known. He was Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector. Those yeshivas are all named Yitzchak Elchanan, the yeshiva, that are named after him. And he was a huge Torah scholar, and he happened to live in that town. So they both go to him, and they both explain their stories. And the man says, the rabbi says, you have to explain to Hanalei here, that, the halacha is the halacha. I don't have to give it to you. And Rabbi Spector says, wait a minute. Not exactly. It's her money. He says, what? He says, listen, wait a second. Think about it here. He says, whose money is this? Is it her money? Her husband's money. It's her husband. She's just using his money. So if she gives up hope, her husband, it's his money. He didn't give up hope. He doesn't know. If she sent a WhatsApp, then maybe he would have given up hope. But there were no WhatsApps in those days. So therefore he never gave up. So technically, therefore, it's not Jewish Shalom Midas, right? It's Jewish Shalom Midas. It is Jewish Shalom Midas, and therefore, according to Abaya, it's, it belongs to her, and he had to give the money back to her. Why do I tell this story? Because there happened to be the first Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva of Mir, Rabbi Yerucham Berkowitz, and he used to explain this to all the Yeshiva Bachrim every year. And he said, this is not just a story about money. This is a story about Elul. This is a story about your soul. And this is a story about your mission in life in this world. He says, you have a soul and you have a mission, and it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to Hashem. And therefore, when you are put in a situation and you think that your soul is lost and you are lost and you don't have any hope and you have given up despair, you don't have the right, because the soul belongs to Hashem. And God, it's God's thing. And so God never gives up. And if God doesn't give up, then it's not, it's never miyuish. It's never a case of despair, because there is no despair, because God never despairs on whatever situation the person is in. And that's how he used to explain this whole story on the spiritual level. This is not the Hasidic story, obviously, because the Mir was not a Hasidic place. This is basic halacha and how you're supposed to look at a story in the Torah, in a story that happened to people. You never give up. You never surrender. Rabbi Twersky used to explain. He said, I had a great grandmother who came from Europe. And she was a daughter of the Steipler Rebbe, and she, in later years, she was a very elderly lady, and she began to have Alzheimer's. But she was a sharp lady, and she used to say the following in Yiddish. She said, "Ich weiß nicht, wo ich bin, ich weiß, wer ich bin, aber ich weiß, wem ich bin," which means simply, I don't know who I am, and I don't know where I am, but I know whose I am. I know who I belong to.
Beautiful.
And so she wasn't so lost. She knew that I belong to Hashem, and my life belongs to my Hashem, my soul belongs to Hashem, and I know who I belong to. And that is very much an Elul Torah, because in Elul we rediscover our soul, we're researching, and we're reconnecting, and we're refinding ourselves, and we're doing tshuva, and we're connected back to Hashem. We're figuring out who we belong to and who we are. And even though it may have been a very challenging year, nevertheless, we know who we belong to, and that's why we belong to the shofar, and that's what we're connected to. And with that, I thought it was a sweet little story, and I thought it worked pretty well. So you liked it.
Thank you. I like it very much.
Okay. The glasses eventually will go away too, but okay, fine. Well, thank you, and I'll let you go into your next speaker.
I take my seat. Okay.
Please thank Kim Shulamith.
Okay, good. I will. Thank you. Okay. Hello, everybody. Hi, Dina. Hey, Dina, you can show your face too.
I don't think the glasses are so terrible. I wanted to tell him that. No, I don't think they're so terrible.
They're just.
No, I know what they are, but they're not like. He's used to seeing, like, you have black frames, but he's not used to seeing himself in black frames.
But they also they're convex. They're like they're
Maybe on Zoom you can't really see how bad it is.
Okay, good. So the class, this is class 220. It was called. Anybody want to say something else before we begin? So
I sort of did. Just because, I mean, it was a very, very nice story about not despairing. And it doesn't always mean that things will turn out the way you want them to. So what does it mean? Don't despair. So it doesn't mean that, like, oh, well, don't worry, Hashem will make everything work out. Because he doesn't. He does what he does, you know. So in this story, it worked out. She got her money. I'm just saying, for people that have bigger struggles than not just their money, but it's just and also I don't understand this comment. It's not a Hasidic word, so I don't know if that would have been a different answer if it was a Hasidic
he was saying
word.
that it was not a story about Hasidic Rebbeim. It was a story about Lit fish were bad.
Right, I understand.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, yeah.
the,
Yeah, I don't.
Lit Bishop, but I don't know if the
Yeah.
ant would have been any different if it
No,
was
no,
Sissy
no, no,
Bishop.
no, 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 no.
No, I didn't think so.
Yeah. So I think that he's talking about, and I think he's talking about what I'm going to talk about also, which is your emotional state. And your emotional state is very much predicated on not just what happens to you, but what goes on in your head and how you process it. And that was beautiful what that lady said in the old folks' home. Just beautiful. So if nobody has something to say,
You
oh,
said that, you said that what he said?
no,
Well, you
what
said
he
this,
said, what he said is,
no, but you just said about this woman that said this word.
you
That the
remember what he
woman,
said? He said, he quoted at the very end. He said, she said, who was it? He quoted his grandmother, who, when she was senile and she was in a home already, she said, "I don't know who I am, and I don't know where I am, but I know whose I am." And I was like,
oh,
so gorgeous. So anyway,
oh,
I know whose I am. Beautiful. That's one thing she never forgot. Anyway, so I'm still
oh.
going to speak about the same things as Yehezkel Shimon. Maybe I'll talk about your question somewhere along there. So the title that we gave it is Achieving Harmony with Yourself. And I think, and I'm going to talk very practically. I
I
think
just want to mute. I'm trying to mute because
I'll mute you. I'll do it.
noise is in the background.
Okay. Okay, good. So, we called it Achieving Harmony with Yourself. And first, I'm going to say the four things I always say. Number one, we're in an extraordinary time. The Lubavitcher Rebbe told us that we are entering the time of the redemption. And as we know, the Rebbe made thousands of hundreds, at least hundreds of predictions. He gave thousands of blessings, which came true. Million, I don't know how many, but hundreds of predictions that came true. And this one is also going to come true because all the public predictions he made, all of them came true. So that's a pretty good track record. And number two, our souls were handpicked to be in this. If we're alive today, it's because our souls were handpicked to be here at this time because we have a critical job to do, each one of us. Number three, we were given all the tools we need to navigate this time. We were given the Torah, which is our guidebook, and the mitzvahs, which are our power tools. And finally, by learning about the redemption, the Geula, we are actively advancing it. The Rebbe says nothing makes it come faster than learning about it. So anyway, achieving harmony with yourself. So I find that a very, very, very practical thing to do in order to achieve harmony with yourself is to remember that you have a Yetzer Hara. And when things go bad, one thing after another, and you start hearing things in a voice in your head, you think it's you. You think like, this too, Hashem? Wasn't it bad enough before? All those voices, yeah, it's not you. It is the voice of your Yetzer Hara. Your Yetzer Hara waits and bides his time. And then when he sees a little fissure in your trust of Hashem, he'll start working to open that fissure wider and wider and wider. Why? Because the Yetzer Hara's job, what he was hired to do, is to challenge you so that and to try and get you to stop doing mitzvahs or to stop doing them with happiness. And eventually you'll stop doing less and less. If you stop doing them with happiness, you'll stop doing them less and less. And his whole and that is his job. And our job is to say no. And the only way you can say no to the Yetzer is by recognizing that, you know what? These voices, this voice of despair, this voice of pulling me from Hashem, this voice of questioning Hashem, this voice of anger with Hashem, this voice of this is not my genuine voice. It is the Yetzer Hara, because the Yetzer Hara doesn't say, ah, Shalom Yehudas, look what Hashem is doing to you now. No, it says, in your own voice, it gets, the Yetzer Hara got to, Hashem gave it permission to talk in the first person. The Yetzer Tov often speaks in the second person, you, but the Yetzer Hara got permission to speak with I. And so you hear, I can't believe you're doing this to me again, or something like that. And you have to recognize that that's not you, that's the Yetzer Hara. And so, so what do I do? I've shown it to you before. When times get really, really tough, when times have been really tough, I'm just gonna get something to show you. Here. I have my famous Yetzer watch. It says right here, Yetzer, I can't do it backwards, Yetzer watch. And I write down the things that the Yetzer is saying to me. You thought blank blank's advice would be a salvation for you? Look at you, still sick. And blah, 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 blah. Seems like there's no Yeshua this time. And you have to recognize it's the Yetzer. So I answer, I accept your facts, but not your conclusion of being down. And besides, lots of things are getting, and you just start accounting the good. Instead of being an accountant for the bad, you start being an accountant for the good. And anyway, I have pages and pages of conversations. When I hear something and I recognize that it's the Yetzer, I write it down, and then I answer the Yetzer, and then whatever, and I align myself once again with Hashem. So so recognize that challenges in life are just part of life, but the Yetzer uses them. He doesn't talk all the time. He comes in when he sees that there is an opportunity, like a weakness, or you've just had it, you're tired, something, and so you have to boot the Yetzer out and rebond with Hashem, because really we're totally bonded with Hashem. We're absolutely and totally bonded with Hashem, and at all times. But we have to realign with our neshama, with our own neshama. The other thing that's very important, and also I rebond with Hashem by declaring my trust in Hashem. It's, with you guys, it's famous by now. I have my declaration that I make when. And the more I make it, the better life goes. And I got a gift of an hourly cuckoo clock. And when the cuckoo clock goes off, I declare my trust in Hashem. And it's a wonderful thing. It's just a wonderful bonding thing. I say, Rabbonu Shalom, I trust you with every ounce of my being, that I see your kindness tonight, because you're the master of kindness, and it is your way to do kindness with your creatures, especially with me. Tati Shabbat, please help me see your kindness. And whatever, it's such a boost for mood and everything else. It realigns me and with Hashem. So
It sounds very beautiful. I'm assuming you don't do it when you're at work, because
no,
you're with
I do it.
your
No, I do
students
it
or
at home.
whatever.
Also, now I do it with a cuckoo clock. So
I noticed it. It's very pretty.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, good.
Cuckoo clock is referring to, like, you'll be cuckoo if you believe what the Yetzer Hara is trying to tell you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. That's great. The other thing that's important is to bond with yourself. The Yetzer not only tries to, the Yetzer, to have harmony with yourself, you have to quiet the Yetzer about what he's saying about Hashem, and you have to quiet the Yetzer about what he's saying about you. I don't know what it is, but somehow, several months ago, I started freaking out at changes in my appearance, because as I don't know if it's happened to you, but I'm getting older, and it got to the point, like, I couldn't go into the bathroom and look in the mirror without saying something horrid to myself. And I knew that you don't do this. It's not a healthy thing to do. And so and I tried different things, and nothing was working. And it was really it was really a tough thing. And then all of a sudden I realized that, yeah, you know who sees these flaws? I see them. Not, it's not like other people are concentrating. "Ah, look, she has less eyebrows than she used to have." Other people are not examining you. They don't look at you they don't look at you with a magnifying glass. Only you look at you with a magnifying glass. And so what I decided to do, and it stopped, the whole process stopped. I decided this is ending. I walked into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I said, "Natural beauty." And I walked out. And it was so funny. And so it was absolutely curative. The Yetzer doesn't bother me anymore like that. It's so amazing. And it's so fun. Natural beauty. And you walk out. You align yourself with yourself. Never let the Yetzer
Wow.
drive you. Never let the Yetzer drive you away from Hashem, and never let the Yetzer drive you away from yourself. So I just want to do a little story about a man who severed himself from Hashem because life got too tough. So it's in this little story, this book, Rabbi Raskin, Guardian. It's stories about mezuzah and tefillin. So he's a Chabad rabbi. I have a little picture of him on another book. Here he is. Anyway, so there was this guy, and his name was let's see. Let me turn to the right page. Yeah, the rabbi he's writing about is a Chabad rabbi named Rabbi Yassel Tool. And Yassel Tool, like many Chabad rabbis, maybe he was even more than most. He was constantly busy doing mitzvahs all day, getting mitzvahs for people, helping people with their kids, helping people with their elderly parents, doing shalom bayis, going to rehabilitation homes, constantly busy. But what people remember about him is that he was constantly warm and upbeat, just very warm and very upbeat. There's only one person who didn't respond to him in his community. One big thing that he did is that he would go to prisons. That's a big thing that Chabad rabbis do. They go to prisons because there are some Jews in prison, and they do what's called mitzvahim. They bring mitzvahs to Jews who are in prison. So he would go to different prisons, but there was one prison that he wasn't allowed to go to. And it wasn't because of the administration at the prison. It was because of the Jewish chaplain at that prison said, "No way, you're not coming to our prison. I will never allow you in here. I'm the Jewish chaplain. I have authority, and you are not coming. We are not interested." So he kept trying.
I can't take this anymore. What am I supposed to do? It keeps saying high pressure.
Okay, so no, I muted the wrong person. Whatever, I don't know. Okay, so listen, you guys. Okay. So that guy Rabbi Metzger said, "I'm never allowing you into this prison. Forget it." But after years, he finally had a break. Rabbi Tool asked him, "Listen, all I want to do is give your prisoners shmura matzah for Pesach. That's all I want to do." And somehow Rabbi Metzger relented, and he said, "Okay, you can, but you can't bring it personally. You can send it to my house. You cannot come to the prison whatsoever, and don't come to my house either. Send it by UPS, okay? Send me the shmur matzah, and I'll distribute it." So the next day, when Rabbi Metzger is at home, there's a knock on his door. He answers the door. No, there's a knock on the door. He says, "Who is it?" The guy said, "UPS." He opens the door, and it's Rabbi Tool. And he was so mad. And Rabbi Tool said, "Listen, I just wanted to show you that the boogeyman is not as bad as you think." And so they got into a little conversation, and anyway, at the end of the little conversation, he felt that Rabbi Tool felt a little bit the ice had melted with this Rabbi Metzger, and then so if he got up his nerve, and a few weeks later he called and he asked if he could bring some joy to the prisoners on Lag BaOmer, if he could come with a few people and a little music and bring joy to the prisoners on Lag BaOmer. And Lag BaOmer, as you remember, is it's 33 days after the start of Pesach. It's between Pesach and Shavuos. And so Rabbi Metzger, to his shock, to Rabbi Tuel's shock, Rabbi Metzger said, okay. And Rabbi Tuel said, I want to come with a few guys and some music. And Rabbi Tuel said, Rabbi Metzger said, okay, but not too many, okay? Not too many guys, okay? So that's what he did. And he came on Lag BaOmer, they came with food, they came with Bachram, they came young yeshiva students, they came with music, and the prisoners were like so excited about the food, and they were so excited about the music, and soon everybody was dancing. Everybody was happy, and everybody was dancing to the music. And Rabbi Tuel walks over to Rabbi Metzger, and all the prisoners put on tefillin. They all agreed to put on tefillin. And so while they were dancing, Rabbi Tuel goes over to Rabbi Metzger, and he says, Rabbi, I think it's time for you to put on tefillin also. And Rabbi Metzger screams at him, your chutzpah knows no limit. What is wrong with you? But Rabbi Tuel could see that there was a little bit of a smile behind the anger. And so Chabad rabbis are just fearless. It's just amazing. So even though the guy yelled at him, Rabbi Tuel takes his arm, left arm, pushes up his sleeve and starts winding tefillin on him. Can you imagine? And Rabbi Metzger screams at him. He says, you're going to show me how to put on tefillin. I know better than you. And he took the tefillin from him and he started wrapping it around his arms. And as soon as he started wrapping the tefillin, he burst into hysterical crying, sobbing from the depths of his being. It took him 20 minutes to put on the tefillin and to say Shema. He was crying so hard. And afterwards, and he did it perfectly. And afterwards, he sat down, and Rabbi Tuel sat down, and he told him his story. And he said, I want to tell you that I was a kid in Nazi Germany, and my grandfather, when I was a kid, the most precious person in my life was my grandfather, who was a very prestigious Orthodox rabbi. And when the Nazis came, they decided to make a laughingstock out of my grandfather. And they pushed him down on the ground, and they put a pigskin over his back, and they made him crawl through the streets of the city wearing the pigskin so everybody could make fun of him. And at that moment, I was so furious. Who was he furious with? He was not furious with the Nazis. He was furious with Hashem. And he said, and I decided that I'm going to get back to Hashem. I'm going to get back at Hashem no matter what I do. After the war, he survived. He went to America. He became a rabbi, and he broke every law in the book. He performed ceremonies he shouldn't have performed. On Yom Kippur he made barbecues, and on Tisha B'Av also, and like whatever he shouldn't have done, he did, and whatever he should have done, he did, and it was all to take revenge on Hashem. And the reason he was so strong about Rabbi Metzger not coming to his prison is that when he heard that Chabad is going to come to the prison, he knew that Chabad prevails. No matter what, Chabad prevails. And he started to get afraid. And he knew that whatever, they're going to destroy his plans. So anyway, he said, but your warmth and your niceness just won me over. And I forgot to say the most important thing. When he put on the tefillin, Gewalt, I forgot to say it. As soon as he put on the tefillin, as soon as he started wrapping it around his arms, he said, Tati, zet mir moichel, Hashem, Father in heaven, forgive me. And he said, and just putting on the tefillin was enough to pull him back all the way to Hashem. And he was so incredibly moved. So 2 weeks later, Rabbi Tuel gets a phone call. It's Rabbi Metzger's son. And he said, Rabbi Tuel, I want you to know that my father passed away today. And my father passed away. And for the last 2 weeks of his life, since he met you, He has done nothing. He has talked about absolutely nothing but you, nothing. So we realize that you had a very profound effect on his life, and we want you to speak at his funeral, which he did. So a Jew, the Yetzer makes you think that Hashem is the enemy. Hashem, he makes you think that he tries to pull you away from yourself, and he tries to pull you away from Hashem. When he pulls you away from Hashem, he's actually he's pulling you away from Hashem at the same time, because a Jew is absolutely aligned with Hashem. I have a theme. I'm a first grade teacher. I used to be a kindergarten teacher too, and I have a theme. My theme each year is stick to Hashem, because that's who you really are. Just stick to Hashem. So anyway, I want to end by saying that in the Sikha, in the talk that the Rebbe gave in 1991, at this time, we just finished Parshas Shoftim. The Rebbe said that, the Rebbe told us that, he told us the most remarkable thing. Everybody knows, it's widely known that the Rebbe made predictions and they all came true. Wacky, unbelievable predictions that nobody made. And in the 6-Day War, when everybody expected Israel to be decimated, and the country, they invested in thousands of body bags and they put them in all the parks because that's where they're going to bury all the people. The Rebbe said, no, there's going to be a miraculous, amazing miracle, even though the Jews were horribly outnumbered in equipment, in people, and everything. The Rebbe said, you're going to see miracles like on the scale of crossing the Red Sea. And we know that we know, I've told a million times the story about how the Rebbe knew the day Gorbachev took office. He told his people in Israel, the Russian Jews are coming out. And Gorbachev later attested about himself that he had no idea that he was going to do anything like that the day he took office. And when he was told the story about what the Rebbe said, he said, I would like to meet such a person who knew more about what I would do than I myself knew. And then we all know about the story about, these are just the more famous stories about Hurricane Andrew, when it was supposed to decimate Miami Beach, and there was a national order to evacuate Miami Beach because Miami Beach was going to go under. And so the Chabadniks asked the Rebbe. The Rebbe was not speaking. Rebbe was not speaking. He had had a stroke. All the Rebbe could do was this and this, and he could say a couple words, like he said "Sasem v'simcha," joy and happiness. And I can't remember what else he said, but generally this is all the Rebbe could do. And they said, and the Jews of Miami Beach asked, should we evacuate? And the Rebbe went like this. And they asked again, and the Rebbe went like this: you do not have to evacuate. And you do not have to evacuate. And one of my best friends, Basha Botnick in Crown Heights, her sister lived in Miami Beach, and they evacuated to one of the allegedly safe places. They're not Chabadniks, but the Chabadniks held firm to the extent that the police, hours before the hurricane was supposed to hit, the police walked around the Chabad neighborhood and knocked on all the doors and asked to have the names of everybody who was remaining, so that they could send, after the hurricane, they could send notices to the relatives of the dead, of the names of the dead. And can you imagine, people had to give their names to the police because the police expected them to be dead within a matter of hours. And the Chabadniks, such incredible Chabadniks, they stayed because the Rebbe went like this: do not evacuate. And, they could have told themselves, the Rebbe had a stroke. Can we still rely on this? But they were such Chabadniks. Rebbe said, no, I'm perfectly safe. And as everybody knows, the hurricane in the last minute veered off and left Miami Beach completely safe, and instead went to areas where they had thought would be safe. So anyway, everybody knows that the Rebbe's, I never heard of a public prediction of the Rebbe that didn't come true. And but the Rebbe told us in 1991 an amazing thing. The Rebbe said, the Rebbe never used the word I, but the Rebbe said, we have to know what prophecy is And we have to know that when you have a prophet, when you have a proven prophet, that means somebody who has, uh, you know, who knows the Torah. He knows the Torah kulo. He knows the whole Torah, and he's very righteous. And completely righteous, does all the mitzvahs. And if he predicts two things and they come true, he is now of the status of a proven prophet, not a suspected prophet, not a prophet in the making, but a proven prophet. And once he's a proven prophet, you must listen and obey everything he said. Not because you don't listen and obey because this guy's got a great track record. You listen and obey because that's a Torah law. It was a Torah law given to Moses by Hashem that's what you do when you have a prophet. And it's in this it's in Shoftim, in fact, in the parsha that we just read. So the Rebbe said that you should listen to the prophet because it's not the words of the prophet. It is the words of Hashem through the prophet. And the Rebbe said the prophecy of our time, given by the prophet of our time. And he said, Rebbe told us the prophecy comes to Mashiach even before the redemption, even before the Geula. And the Rebbe said the prophecy of our time is that the Geula is unfolding. And you have to, and the Rebbe said, and it is your obligation. It is not, and because the prophet is saying this, it's not, maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't do it. That's my clock. And maybe I'll do it, and maybe I won't do it. No, you don't have free will in this anymore. If the prophet says it, and you're a Jewish person, you, by Torah law, you must do what the prophet says. So you are obligated to tell all the people of your generation that Mashiach is here, and the Geula is unfolding, and the Rebbe said, and what if a person says, yeah, but it doesn't sit so well with me. I'm not totally comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable with this myself. How can I tell other people? The Rebbe said, the Rebbe says, even if you're a great person and it just doesn't sit well with you, it doesn't matter. The prophet said you have to do it, and therefore you are halachically obligated to spread the news. And if you're worried that the world won't accept it, the Rebbe said that would be a worry if the Geula were a novelty. But by now, everybody knows what it's all about. So go, the world is ready. Go spread the message. So anyway, I want to wish you all a good week, and I'm going to turn off the recording. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. And I want to say to those who just listen to the recording and don't come on live, that you should come on live sometimes because we have nice discussions after the recording is turned off. So